I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker.
You're listening to Speed 77 Radio,
powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports.
Can't take no more than that. Since the flag came down, I'll be here to the last lap around. Well, dog, it's time to play. Gonna get a little bit sideways. Yeah, since the flag came down, be here to the last lap around. Well, dog, it's time to play. Gonna get a little bit sideways.
We're back, ladies and gentlemen. It's Tuesday night, and that means it's time for another edition of Motorsports Madness here on Speed 77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. Tonight, we've got all the recaps, analysis, you name it, from the Snowball Derby over the past weekend. We'll discuss some open wheel action with our resident wine and cheeser, Joel Sebastianelli, and we'll take a look at the V8 Supercar finale from Sydney, Australia. It all starts right now on Motorsports Madness. We're glad you're along for the ride. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Speed 77 Radio. I'm Jacob Seelman, alongside my broadcast partner, Tom Baker of RaceChaserOnline.com. James Pike is off tonight, but Tom, the two of us are back at the table as always. Race fans may have noticed that we're just a little bit late getting started tonight. I was in the educational world, actually just finished finals a little while ago. My brain might be mush, but I can at least think motorsports at least a little bit tonight.
Situation normal?
Yeah, something like that. But interesting weekend from around the world of motorsports. The national scene may be over, but that doesn't mean there's not still a lot to talk about.
There's a ton to talk about, and glad that you finished up your finals and passed your finals, which is much better. And so now we're ready to talk some racing here, Jacob. I don't know where you want to start, man.
Oh, boy. How about the social media storm of the weekend? The Snowball Derby from Sunday afternoon and the whole weekend. Snowflake 100, all the action from down in Five Flags Speedway. Certainly a very, very interesting weekend of pro late model and super late model racing. Super trucks thrown in the mix. Short track racing, it doesn't get any better than Five Flags on the first weekend of December for the Snowball Derby and all the ensuing activities. Every year it's a fantastic event, certainly one that I want to cross off my bucket list here in the next couple of years. Always great fun, great excitement, and this time great controversy as well.
Yeah, well, what would a major short track race in December be without just a little bit of controversy, right?
Oh, of course. And certainly we'll get to the controversy in a moment, but let's tell the story of the weekend in slight order, shall we? Certainly, the story of the weekend came from all the invaders, the NASCAR stars coming to town. Guys like David Reagan, Cale Gale, Chase Elliott, John Hunter Nemechek, and the like returning to the short track scene to try and claim the prize and the glory of Five Flags Speedway and the weekend Snowball Derby. Saturday night in the pro late model portion of the event, Chase Elliott was a man on a mission and accomplished everything he set out to do. Started from pole, set a new pro late model track record at 16.3, goes out, leads about the first third of the race, drops back to save tires because for those fans that don't know, Five Flags Speedway, a major tire eater, and then methodically worked his way back through the field from 6th, passes John Hunter Nemechek with 5 laps to go, and wins his third Snowflake 100, first driver in the history of the Snowflake 100 to score 3 victories. The only other driver with multiple victories, Augie Grill, who's got 2.
Well, that makes for a lot of competition there, doesn't it, going into the Snowflake and the Snowball both? But certainly the story started with Chase Elliott, and of course, all the way through the weekend, it continued with Chase Elliott, and then it ended with Chase Elliott as well.
Yeah, it did. It started actually on Friday evening when Chase took the pole for Sunday's running of the Snowball Derby. New super late model track record was set as well at a 16.1 for Chase Elliott. So a lot of speed in the racetrack. Part in fact, because the temperatures were just so cold this weekend. It was very unseasonably cool in Florida for Snowball Derby weekend. Usually, we expect it to be in the 60s to even low 70s still in Pensacola for Five Flags Speedway the first weekend of December, but this weekend it was unseasonably cold. Old Man Winter had something to say with the race weekend and certainly led to very, very fast speeds in qualifying.
Yeah, it is. Anytime it's cold, obviously the motors work better, and that definitely increases the speeds. Seems to be a little bit of a horsepower bump, and temperatures stay cooler, so the performance is better in the motors. Definitely an increase in speed. Certainly an increase in Chase Elliott's speed.
Yes, and Chase, so he wins the pole for the Snowball Derby, wins the pole for the Snowflake 100, wins the Snowflake 100, is trying to become the first driver in history not just to win the Snowflake and the Snowball in the same weekend, but the first driver in history to complete a grand slam, a sweep of the entire weekend, win both poles with new track records, and win both races. And wouldn't you know it, he almost did it. Almost.
Almost. He did win the Snowflake.
We thought he won the Snowball. We thought he did. I mean, he crossed the line first, but as they say in Five Flags Speedway lore, the Room of Doom is the final story.
Well, that's true of any racetrack. You have to go through tech after the race, and of course, he wins the Snowflake and wins the Snowball, completes the sweep, and then goes to tech. And this is where it gets interesting, because he was in tech a total of about 2 hours, and it really looked as if he was going to pass tech. And then an opposing team member finds a piece of tungsten, and all of it comes unglued.
Completely unglued in Five Flags Speedway super late model rules. Tungsten as opposed to lead weights are illegal, which is an automatic disqualification, which means Chase Elliott gets thrown out after 2 hours of tech, and ultimately, after the rest of the top three passes tech, delivers the Snowball to, wouldn't you know it, but Eric Jones and the Kyle Busch Motorsports 51. Jones beat Busch to win the Snowball last year. This year, he drives Busch's car to victory lane. And oh, by the way, the caveat here, he never officially led a lap.
Yeah, that's how it happens. Sometimes, let's talk a little bit about this situation, Jacob. So, to explain for those who aren't real familiar with, excuse me, with with tungsten and how it relates to race cars, this is how it kind of goes down. Tungsten is a substance that, much like lead, is used to make bolt-on weight for cars. Now, tungsten is a denser metal than lead. The interesting thing about tungsten is that it is also about 20 times more expensive than lead per piece. So, one piece, according to track sources, one piece of tungsten was found on Chase Elliott's car. So by the rules, no tungsten allowed. Somebody from the 51 car, which happens to be Eric Jones' car owned by Kyle Busch, notices the tungsten and calls it to the track official, the head tech inspector, who then is forced to declare Chase Elliott illegal and disqualified as per the rules. Now, this was supposedly a rule due to the cost. Makes perfect sense to me. But it opened the door to a lot of questions, Jacob.
It really did, and certainly you and I both have done a little bit of digging over the last couple days. It's opened the door to a lot of questions. I think none more so than, did the tungsten provide a significant performance advantage to Elliott during the Snowball Derby? And B, why are we talking about it being legal in other parts of the country, but not banned everywhere, so to speak, because of the cost caps? If you're trying to make racing affordable, and I'll tackle this part of the question first. If you're trying to make racing affordable here, Tom, and you're trying to make super late model racing cost-friendly to these teams that are trying to move their way up the ranks, or guys who may not have a lot of money to go out and buy into NASCAR or a lot of sponsorship, you talk about these guys who $1,800 for a tungsten weight versus $100 for its lead equivalent. Tungsten weights are legal in super late model racing in some parts of the country and not in others, specifically in the Derby as we're talking about it in this case. From several crew chiefs, including Neil Cantor from Kyle Beatty Motorsports that I've talked to over the past 2 days, several crew chiefs familiar with super late model racing have said, even the Kyle Busch Motorsports crew chief that found the tungsten, caught the tungsten, brought it to everybody's attention, have said it did not provide a significant performance advantage or even a measurable performance advantage to Chase Elliott's machine. He still would have won the race on lead, but that poses the question, if it's not a performance advantage, why is it not illegal everywhere in the first place?
Well, why indeed? I mean, let's break this down a little further, just to clarify, again, for those who really aren't familiar with all of this debate between tungsten and lead, that what Jacob has basically just said is that tungsten is legal to be used as weight ballasts on super late models in some series and in some parts of the country, but it is not legal specifically at Five Flags for the Derby, and it is also not legal in some other circles. It is used in series like the Cup Series because of the way the cars are built and the way that tungsten allows the weight placement to be altered versus versus chunks of lead. It is used in higher series like the Cup Series. So let's take a look at what we have here. According to almost every crew chief that we spoke with, one piece of tungsten doesn't provide any performance advantage. That doesn't matter. It was illegal by the rule at Five Flags. They had to throw him out. I don't think anyone is really in disagreement with the disqualification based on the fact that there is a rule that outlaws tungsten, period. The Chase Elliott teams, because they made a mistake, didn't mean to put that one piece in there with the rest of the lead weight. Possibly so. Now, if you were to use tungsten entirely and exclusively on a super late model, it very well could provide a performance advantage because it does allow you to lower the center of gravity somewhat, which is always an advantage. And because, again, because of the way the tungsten metal, the density of the metal, it allows you to have more control over exactly where you put your weight. So that allows you to tweak your setup a little further and can be an advantage. So basically what the big question becomes is, if in fact tungsten is 20 times more expensive, and it is, according to pricing at places such as Stock Car Steel, 18 to 20 times more costly than a piece of lead, the equivalent piece of lead, then why in the world, in a sport where we are so cost conscious these days, why in the world would we even consider allowing tungsten in super late model racing anywhere? And why would Chase Elliott even have it? Well, there are two theories on the part about Chase Elliott. The first one is that they may use tungsten at other races where it is legal. The second is that they may have had the tungsten to use at the other races because it's legal, because they're affiliated with Hendrick Motorsports, who, of course, uses tungsten on its full-size NASCAR stock cars. So it's just a big mess, really. At the end of the day, did Chase Elliott gain a performance advantage by the one piece of tungsten? Well, it seems that the answer is no. But had to be disqualified because of the no tungsten rule. Unfortunately for Chase, it put a black mark on an otherwise nearly perfect season. And more importantly, it raised a bigger question about why don't we just outlaw this altogether, and then we won't have to have a no tungsten rule. We can just outlaw tungsten in super late model racing, period. And then we'll have it, and you can check for it. And if they have it, it's obviously illegal. Therefore, in other words, but here's my question, Jacob. I have a lingering question because there is no way that Kyle Busch's crew member saw that tungsten without it actually being pulled out of the car, which would only have been done by the head tech inspector, whoever was teching the car. And if you have one piece of tungsten and two pieces or three pieces of lead weight, as was described, then my question is, if that crew member of Kyle Busch's car doesn't point out the tungsten, were they going to actually let Chase Elliott go through with it?
Exactly the question that several people have asked, and my response to that, Tom, as much as it's going to sound like I'm playing devil's advocate here, is that's a question between Ricky Brooks and God. And unless we've got Ricky Brooks somewhere, unfortunately, it's not a question that we're going to be able to answer. But it certainly turns a lot of heads, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And I want to stress here, I'm not accusing Ricky Brooks of anything. I'm just simply asking the question because it just seems amazing to me that we're taking someone else from a different team to point out a piece of tungsten. It's not as if the tungsten and the lead look exactly alike. You can tell the difference. You know what you're holding. If you know anything about either of those two substances, you can certainly feel the difference holding one of each in your hands. At the end of the day, I just wonder why it took someone else pointing it out for action to be taken. It may seem a bit of a technical issue. It may seem to be a bit picky. Well, if one tungsten wasn't a performance advantage, why do we disqualify him? Well, because you have a rule that says no tungsten. So tough break for Chase Elliott, great break for Eric Jones. I just think it really calls the bigger issue. It calls a whole bigger matter into question here of when are we going to get to the point where a super late model is a super late model is a super late model, and they're all the same across the country. This has been a terrible problem for late models, both the super late model variety and the NASCAR late model stock variety. They're not the same between series. They're not the same from one part of the country to another. Rules are different. Motor rules are different, and it just wreaks havoc with people trying to get into the sport. It drives the cost up because you got to have different things for different series. You can't easily go play between series. Way too many egos in that part of the sport that want to keep their cars, quote unquote, in their series, quote unquote, or at their track, quote unquote. And it's about time, I think, that the powers that be in both asphalt, NASCAR late model stock, and super late model racing put aside their own egos and got together and standardized these classes so that if I want to buy a late model, I can take that late model to any one of the 50 states where that series or that type of car is run, and the rules are basically the same, because it would certainly encourage more people to move around, and it would certainly be easier to explain to people coming into that part of the sport Well, look, you buy this, you buy that, and you can go race it anywhere. Much like you can, for example, with a Legends car or a sprint car in most situations. Those types of cars are standardized. I think it's about time we did the same with late models. I think really Chase Elliott just got he became the victim basically of a mistake that was caused from the fact that we have different rules in different situations, and the team just somehow messed up.
And I think that's about all you can say on that. And with that, congratulations to Erik Jones, now a two-time and back-to-back winner of the Snowball Derby, the first driver since Augie Grill to accomplish that feat. Jones, actually, this brings it full circle for Kyle Busch Motorsports. Erik Jones wins the race after Chase Elliott was disqualified. 5 years ago, it was that Kyle Busch Motorsports 51 that was disqualified for a tech infraction in post-race inspection. Actually, they had wheel blowers, brake fans on the front of that machine that were cooling the tires and helping to add grip to the front of that race car. So 5 years later, the tech line repays Kyle Busch after that infraction, but Grant Enfinger finishes second on 7 cylinders. That's certainly a feel-good story of the weekend. Austin Theriault third. A great race overall, though, certainly, and the atmosphere always fun at the Derby. Looking forward to it next year, but for now, we're going to take our first caution flag, and when we come back, we're going to delve into the open wheel world. And Tom, there's a fire brewing under Joel Sebastianelli. We'll hear from him right after this. You're listening to Speed 77 Radio, powered by Race Chaser Online, and we are your home for motorsports.
Packers,
Vikings,
Red State,
Blue State.
We come from different places.
Uptown,
Downtown.
We come to different conclusions.
half empty,
Half full.
But no matter how different we are, we're all connected, and we can all make a difference. That's why United Way brings people, expertise, and resources together to improve the education, income, and health of our communities, the building blocks for a better life. When we live united, our efforts, magnified by others, add up to real change. Children succeed in school, families gain financial stability, the health of our neighbors improves, and suddenly, so do our communities. But real change won't happen without you.
Live united.
So let's look beyond our differences.
Live united.
One by one, let's make a difference. Let's reach out a hand to one and influence the condition of all.
Live united.
Give, advocate, volunteer. Live United. Sign up today at liveunited.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
For 17 years, Stock Car Steel has been a leading materials supplier to the racing industry. We're proud they're a motorsports content partner here at Race Chaser Online. The biggest names in NASCAR trust Stock Car Steel for raw materials such as carbon steel, chrome moly, DOM, aluminum, plastics, and much more. You can't build a race car without the basic materials, and Stock Car Steel is the place to get them. Don't forget to also visit Stock Car Steel's sister company, SRI Supplies, for racing and industry. SRI is the place to go for all your shop supply needs. Nuts, bolts, rivets, tapes, adhesives, cutting tools, chemicals, body shop supplies, paint shop supplies, lubricants, and more. A well-stocked race shop is a winning race shop, and the path to winning begins with 3 letters, SRI. For more information, visit stockcarsteel.com or SRI-supplies.com. Check them both out on Facebook or call them toll-free at 1-888-752-7272, 1-888-752-7272.
I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker,
You're listening to Speed 77 Radio.
powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports. Welcome back to Motorsports Madness here on Speed 77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. Moving now into the next part of our hour this evening, and now we move to Open Wheel Central. And Joel, I didn't think we were going to see you back on the program so soon. However, big news out of the F1 world here over the past 48 hours. Some sweeping rules changes taking place for 2014 after the council in Paris. So a lot to talk about here over the next couple of minutes.
So many changes. So many of the things in Formula One that we know just got flipped upside down. And perhaps some of them are good, but some of them are just going to make you scratch your head. really, really different landscape in 2014 when you consider not just the new regulations, but also stuff like the new engines, moving to V6 turbos. It's going to be a completely different F1 season in 2014.
And certainly it opens up questions about who's going to be able to step out of the box quickly. Obviously, you mentioned the V6 turbo package that F1 is moving to for 2014. Going to change some of the technology, but one of the biggest things that came out of the Paris Council here over the past 48 hours was the introduction of a cost cap system, which I'm personally a fan of. I feel like F1 has turned into a money sport, and I feel like the introduction of cost caps, which according to the council is supposed to take place and be implemented by about June of next season, I think it's a good move on F1's part. I know there's not been a lot of details released about it, Joel, but what are your thoughts on F1 finally trying to get some of these costs down?
Yeah, it's very tough to actually say much about it right now because, like you said, there are very few details. But we've known that Formula One has been trying to get costs down for quite a while, and I see no reason that cost cap would eventually be a good thing. I'm sure the number will be reasonable, and with enough input from teams and the major players in Formula One, I'm sure it's going to be a great thing for all of them.
And obviously, as we get more information in the coming months about that, we'll certainly have you on to discuss it a little bit further. But another move that was made by the FIA in Paris over the past couple days is the fact that permanent race numbers in Formula One have been reinstated. And I know, as a fan of the history of Formula One, I'm personally a fan of this move. You think back to some of the famous numbers over recent years, Gilles Villeneuve in the 27, Nigel Mansell in the 5. I feel like we're taking a step back to a little bit of the historical era of Formula One with this move. The world champion will still receive the 1, but other than that, you pick your number and stick with it for the duration of your career. I know you were a little bit conflicted on the move, but I'm personally a fan of it.
Yeah, I like the way it is simply because I'm used to it. But when you think of it from a marketing standpoint, this is a really, really good thing for Formula One. Because in Formula One, there's iconic teams, the iconic colors of Ferrari, or, you know that Mark Webber and Sebastian Vettel, at least, last season and the seasons before, they race for Red Bull. But there's not the association with the number, which is a very, very strong thing. Even if you ask someone who's a big Formula One fan, but, is just a fan of racing in general, you say the number 3, you think of Dale Earnhardt. You say 43 or 24. There's so many numbers in NASCAR that people associate with, and that's something that in the current era of Formula One that there's not that attachment to. And it's a really, really good thing for them. You can follow your favorite driver and have that association with this number. It makes a ton of sense for them to do it. It's just going to be really weird at first.
It will certainly be a change compared to what we've been used to over the last 2 decades or so, but certainly, like you said, from a marketing standpoint, a great move for the FIA and for Formula One. And now we get to the biggest change that was announced out of Paris over the last 48 hours, and that's the highly controversial decision that the final race of the 2014 Formula One season at Abu Dhabi will pay double World Drivers' Championship and World Constructors' Championship points, quote, in order to maximize focus on the championship until the end of the campaign. International publications and most of the Formula One paddock have gone nuts after this announcement. World champ Sebastian Vettel said, quote, this is absurd and punishes those who have worked hard for a full season. Former driver Taki Inoue described the change as something almost out of a Mario Nintendo game. But, Joel, I know you were outspoken when you heard about this. Just an unbelievable announcement by Formula One, trying to take a page out of their NASCAR countrymen's books here in the United States, perhaps?
You don't need to manufacture drama, whether it's NASCAR, IndyCar, just karting at a local go-kart track. You don't need to manufacture drama. And that's exactly what they're trying to do, and it's completely absurd. It's the most ridiculous announcement I've seen from Formula One, at least in my lifetime. I cannot believe that they're going to actually mess with the way the championship works, how every single Grand Prix matters. You work hard over the course of the entire season. You know, I suppose they could do what NASCAR does and just reset everything once you get to the final couple races and punish the teams even more. But to have Abu Dhabi, of all places, not a place with even historical significance like Monaco, Abu Dhabi for the last race of the year is going to pay double and be that important. Don't forget, points in Formula One only go from 25 to 1. And in 10th place, you get 1 point. If you finish 11th and further back in the field, you don't score any points for a race. So it's possible that you could have a 50-point swing in one race when you do double points. That's ridiculous. That's 2 Grand Prix victories that you're making up in Abu Dhabi. And, you know, if you're somebody who's finished third a couple times and you've scored 15 points in those 2 races, well, just by winning Abu Dhabi, that guy has 20 more points than you do. It's ridiculous. When you consider just how the points work, and you break it down like that, the fact that you get double is just even more ridiculous. I cannot believe that a group of people in Formula One management all sat down together, and every single one of them nodded their heads in agreement and said, oh, this is a great idea. Let's implement this. It's mind-boggling to me that people think this is a good idea. The worst thing you can do in racing at any form is try to manufacture drama. This isn't other sports where you can have a playoff system or certain games that matter more than the others. You've got an intrinsic value that makes certain races, like Monaco, more important. You don't need to add double points and just mess with the sanctity of the season and the way it's been for so long. It's unfathomable that Formula One would do this, and I really hope that with the paddock, the fans, and just about everyone else complaining about this, I haven't seen one person defend double points. Hopefully, Formula One will look at this and say, you know what, maybe this isn't as good an idea as we thought, and they'll be able to strike that from the record, because I absolutely hate it, and there's absolutely no way that you could ever convince me that this is a good thing for the sport. No amount of drama at the very end would ever make this okay.
So, Joel, basically what you're saying is you believe the whole idea of double points in this last race is the worst idea since Nuggies for Dogs.
Pretty close. Pretty close. It's right up there. I mean, maybe even more so. I'm not really passionate about the whole pet issue, but this is something I am passionate about, and to see it tinkered with like this, it just really, really makes me upset. There's no way to me. I mean, think about this, Jacob. I mean, can you justify, just by playing the devil's advocate, how this is a good thing for the sport? It really does punish these teams that are worked hard all year long. Even if there's a ton of drama in that final race, it's manufactured drama. It's drama that shouldn't be there, because no driver should be making up 50 points in the final race.
And, you know, I agree with you, Joel. I can't look at this from a devil's advocate standpoint and find any reason that this is a good thing. And I think that's the biggest point to all this, is why there is no good to this. It's exactly like you said. It's ridiculous, it's absurd, and I agree with you. I hope Formula One management takes a serious look at this, because, again, you're absolutely right. NASCAR and the chase is one thing, in my opinion, because at least they give you, they give you almost a third of the season to change things after the reset. But Formula One, you're basically throwing all this up. You're throwing the championship into basically one race now at this point, and I don't see how any major motor racing series in the world could do something like that and basically leave the entire world championship up to a single event.
Yeah, with the way the point system works in Formula One, it's just even more, what's the word I'm looking for? It's just absurd. If Formula One really wanted to that's the thing. What they should have done is just award double points to everybody else other than Red Bull. That's how you even out the season. Red Bull gets normal points. Everybody else scores double. You know, that sort of drama, it leaves you're tightening up the standings. But for somebody like Sebastian Vettel, I mean, just by making the final race of the season double points, if you've got somebody who's dominated like Vettel did, it wouldn't even matter for the World Championship. Who it would matter for are teams at the bottom, where there's just so few points that are separating them. In the constructors' standings this year, 20 points separated Sauber and Force India. 24 points separated Sauber from Toro Rosso. These aren't big margins at all. And for those teams with so much money at stake, I just think it would be incredibly unfair if Toro Rosso, simply by having a good performance at Abu Dhabi, would be able to leapfrog a team like Sauber or somebody else just on the strength of one race.
I do want to close here by saying you heard it here, folks. Joel Sebastianelli has finally come up with something that is worse than Snuggies for Dogs. Joel, obviously, you, as much as everybody else, extremely outspoken on all the changes in Formula One, but none more so than the points issue. We appreciate you taking some time to come on and talk with us. We'll look forward to seeing you back on the show here through the off-season. If we don't talk to you again before Christmas, have a great holiday season, and hopefully once the new year hits, we'll have you back on with even more news from out of the open wheel world.
Happy holidays to everyone in the racing world.
All right, Tom. Not only is double points in the last race a bad idea, but you heard Joel say it just a minute ago. We finally found something that's worse than Snuggies for Dogs.
For dogs. Well, the fact that I happen to disagree with Joel will come as no surprise to him.
Oh, gee, I gotta hear this. I mean, Joel's rant has already been great, but you go ahead and do what I couldn't, because I couldn't find a way to disagree with Joel on this being a bad idea. So please, feel free to enlighten me.
Well, it's simple. What Formula One is trying to do is just give themselves a ghost of a chance. Note the Rush song reference here. Give themselves a ghost of a chance to have something to make the last race at Abu Dhabi worth watching. Because this year, there was no point. Sebastian Vettel had it won 6 weeks before the season ended. Just nobody knew it yet. Here's the bottom line. If Sebastian Vettel has another season like he had this year, which seems fairly likely, frankly, but if he does, then this whole double points thing will be moot. I mean, it won't matter. It might change second on back isn't going to change the champion. It might change the constructors champion somehow. I really don't know if that could happen or not. But I just disagree. I like the fact that they made one race. If we were going to go into a chase like NASCAR has, no, that's a ridiculous idea. NASCAR doesn't need it anymore. It should be gone out of NASCAR at this point because it's outlived its usefulness, and it never has really increased ratings as NASCAR hoped it would. I think this is okay. I'm not in love with it, and I don't necessarily think it's going to change the champion if Sebastian Vettel keeps going the way he's going, but I don't see a reason to be status quo with this. I don't see a reason not to try it and see if it makes a difference. We'll see. Personally, I wish they'd just do passing points in Formula One, and then maybe we'd actually have some racing instead of what we have a lot of times, which is one guy gets out front, takes off, and goes away.
Or, God forbid, team orders.
Yeah, well, that too. See, if F1 really wants to do this right, which they won't, because it would ruin the engineering and mentality and the focus. See, Formula One cares more about the owner, the Constructors' Cup, than they do about who the driving champion is. That's the first problem with F1. So if F1 really wanted to do what was right, they would do away with team orders. They would institute passing points, and they would try to make it so that we have to race and try to even the teams a little bit. I like the cost cap, and I don't really care about the numbers system. I don't care if a driver carries a number his whole career or not. It really doesn't matter. I'm not a big number guy. So whatever number the driver is, if that's my driver, I follow the driver. It doesn't matter. I just don't see Joel being so whacked out about double points for one race at the end of the year. It's just a way to maybe have a little bit of hope that we might have a reason to care. Because this year we surely didn't. We knew who was going to win it unless he broke.
Which didn't happen.
Which didn't happen. So I just don't see this as being the big deal that Joel does. However, I really do love the Snuggies for Dogs reference. That's just one of those in-jokes of this show. Joel came out with that last year in reference to IndyCars doing double file restarts. Said it was the worst idea since Snuggies for Dogs. And so it's kind of been a little in-joke. It was a good catch on your part to come back with that. And I love the way Joel responded. I just disagree with him. I like the idea because it'll be something fun to try. I don't know if it's going to be a good solution, but I think it's better than doing nothing. I just don't think any of it is the right thing. Like you said, team orders are a big deal. I just think it's too much about the constructors rather than the racers. Fans, at least as far as I know, don't pay just to see a Ford win or a Chevy win. They pay to see a driver win. So let's make it more about the drivers. And the Constructors' Cup, just like the Owners' Championship in NASCAR, it should be a big deal, but it shouldn't be the only deal. And I've always thought Formula One was too much about that.
Agreed, and I'll give you that one. Now, from Joel's side of things, I will say that part of his problem is he's looking at this going, we're worrying about the possibility of this impacting the final race and the Drivers' Championship too much. But, and you know me, I look at the statistics, 5 of the last 8 years the title's been settled in the final race, and only 3 times in the last 2 decades would the title have changed hands under the double point system in the final race. 2008, Felipe Massa would have won it over Lewis Hamilton. One of Schumacher's championships would have gone away to, I believe it's Fernando Alonso. I don't have the notes right in front of me, but Joel and I were discussing the history of it, and actually the 2012 championship, Alonso would have won it over Sebastian Vettel and taken one of his titles away. But for the most part, history has shown, and the math has shown, that even with the double points system in the last 2 decades, it doesn't matter when you get to the final race. Usually, the champion is going to be the champion is going to be the champion. So, we'll see. I do agree with you, though, Tom. I do think it's at least worth playing out, but if something disastrous happens, like Joel spells out, then maybe we reevaluate it.
Well, look, double points is the same for everybody. I mean, as long as it's the way the system is the same for everybody, I don't see any reason for anyone to be against it. And all they're trying to do is create some drama at the end of the year, where this year there surely was none. So if somebody gets taken out the last race of the season with a double-digit lead or whatever, loses it because it's double points, well, I mean, that's racing. That's part of the sport. I mean, I don't see where this is such a big deal. I don't think it's necessarily going to do everything that F1 may hope it does, but I just don't think it's such a big deal, and I don't know why Joel should be so seriously against it. I know he's against gimmicks, but, I don't know that it's a gimmick. I think you're just trying to do something to improve something, like NASCAR did with the chase. But NASCAR right now, the chase I think it's outlived its usefulness. We don't have a chase in Nationwide. We don't have a chase in trucks. And we had very tight battles right down to Homestead with both of those series. So I don't think Cup needs the chase. I don't think the chase has done for NASCAR what they thought it would. And this may not do for Formula One what they think it would. But again, it's the same for everybody. So why not? Let's see what it does.
And we will see what it does in 2014, and certainly it'll be interesting to see how it plays out when we get to Abu Dhabi the end of November. But with all that discussion in hand, we're going to take another caution flag, and when we come back, we'll finish off the show tonight with a little bit of V8 supercar action, and I'm feeling a little lonely here because our resident Camel City kid and Australian expert James Pike is off tonight, but I'll take the Australian throne and throw some...
Why is Pike off tonight? Who approved that vacation day for Pike?
I certainly didn't, but I can't overrule his real job bosses. Unfortunately, I don't have that kind of power. Wish I did, but
man, he chose Best Buy over us. That's sad.
Oh, I know, right? I know, but all that being said, we'll still try to fill it out as best we can. We'll be right back after these words. You're listening to Speed 77 Radio and Race Chaser Online, and we are your home for motorsports.
Oh!
You are round MVP.
Yeah, man. Yo, Drew, I finally got round MVP. Round MVP.
No way. That was some ownage. It's a good thing you got me as your wingman.
Right. You mean when you threw that flash grenade at me?
Whatever, man. Huge round. Seriously, great stuff.
Finally earning round MVP takes determination. So will getting into college. I've got what it takes.
All right, class. I'm going to pass back your tests. And a high score goes to... Brian.
Oh, yeah! High score, baby!
We're all good at something. Maybe it's breakdancing or skateboarding or video games. Whatever you're good at, you have the skills to make it happen. And those same skills will help you get to college. Visit knowhowtogo.org to learn what you should be doing right now to prepare for college. Start taking the steps at knowhowtogo.org.
I've got what it takes. So do you.
Brought to you by the American Council on Education, Lumina Foundation, and the Ad Council.
For 17 years, Stock Car Steel has been a leading materials supplier to the racing industry. We're proud they're a motorsports content partner here at Race Chaser Online. The biggest names in NASCAR trust Stock Car Steel for raw materials such as carbon steel, chrome moly, DOM, aluminum, plastics, and much more. You can't build a race car without the basic materials, and Stock Car Steel is the place to get them. Don't forget to also visit Stock Car Steel's sister company, SRI Supplies, for racing and industry. SRI is the place to go for all your shop supply needs. Nuts, bolts, rivets, tapes, adhesives, cutting tools, chemicals, body shop supplies, paint shop supplies, lubricants, and more. A well-stocked race shop is a winning race shop, and the path to winning begins with 3 letters, SRI. For more information, visit stockcarsteel.com or SRI-supplies.com. Check them both out on Facebook or call them toll-free at 1-888-752-7272, 1-888-752-7272.
I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker.
You're listening to Speed 77 Radio,
powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports. Welcome back to Motorsports Madness here on Speed 77 Radio and RaceChaserOnline.com. Jacob Seelman and Tom Baker at the round table, and we're going to close off tonight's show with a little bit of V8 Supercar roundup from Sydney, Australia, and the Sydney Park Circuit, the Sydney 500, the final race of the V8 Supercar season. And Tom, certainly the name that everybody has talked about in Formula One over the last couple years has been Red Bull. No different in Australia. Red Bull Racing Australia this season has been the dominant force, just like they have over the past couple of years. And Jamie Whincup, the proverbial Jimmy Johnson of the V8 Supercar Series, taking it to the field again, beating out his teammate Craig Lowndes. Whincup winning his 5th overall V8 Supercars championship. That's tied for the most all-time. And get this, he's also won 5 out of the last 6. He denies Craig Lowndes his first title in almost a decade and a half. We talk about Red Bull, we talk about motorsports. It seems like the two go synonymously, but Jamie Whincup, 5 championships now, certainly cementing his place among the greats of Australian touring car racing with that 5th championship in Sydney.
That is definitely a pretty amazing accomplishment, isn't it?
It really is, and Craig Lowndes, the heartbreak, and certainly he named it out in his post-race interview. He said the reason we lost this championship was because we did not qualify well. Whincup qualified 1st and 3rd for the 2 races in Sydney on Saturday and Sunday. Lowndes qualifies either close to 10th or outside the top 10 and was only able to muster finishes of 5th and 15th. And certainly a 15th place finish in a championship race is never going to win you a series title. Unless you're Jimmy Johnson.
Well, that may be true. However, have you seen this scenario before, like very recently in the last couple of months, where a championship has been largely decided by the difference in qualifying?
I think I know where you're going with this, but continue.
I was speaking of the World of Outlaws.
Aha! Now we're getting somewhere. Yes, the difference in qualifying. Darren Pittman versus Donnie Schatz. Pittman qualifying P1 13 times to Schatz's 3, and certainly a 50-point difference right there, 50-point swing, and Pittman won the championship by 14 points. Certainly makes you wonder, doesn't it? And Donnie Schatz said it himself after the World Finals. We heard him.
Well, yeah, it all depends on how it's all set up as to how much qualifying plays a part. In NASCAR, qualifying really doesn't make much of a difference at all, per se. I think, we have, at some point, I think what we've seen a lot of over the last couple months are examples of the fact that at some point we need to get back in this sport to remembering what the fans like, what the fans pay to see, what the fans want. It isn't about competitors. It isn't about track officials. It isn't about even so much sponsors in terms of the way the rules are set up. It's really about fans. We need to put fans in the seats. So I love it when somebody can say, well, I won this or I lost this because of qualifying. Hey, I mean, that says a lot, because obviously you either did your whole day right or you didn't. And, that's a part of the racing. So if qualifying is an integral part of the points or makes a big difference, then that's going to make qualifying more exciting for the fans too. Whereas with NASCAR right now, it doesn't make any difference at all, really. And nobody really wants to see cars going around the track one at a time for time trials all the time.
That they don't, and certainly it's made it very interesting in several series this year. But a quick look at the 2 race results from the Sydney 500, split into 2 250-kilometer events. Jamie Whincup taking the victory from pole in race number 1. Jonathan Webb, who has struggled this season in the V8 Supercar ranks, finally breaking through to a top 5 finish. Just his 5th of the season, if the numbers I'm looking here are correct and I can count. I told you, my brain is mush today, but Jonathan Webb coming home 2nd. 3rd on the afternoon was Shane Van Gisbergen, who would redeem himself from a 3rd place finish in race number 1 to take the win. Also from pole in race number 2 on Sunday, Van Gisbergen finishing 5th in the points and grabbing his 2nd win of the season. His first win since the season opening weekend in Adelaide, all the way back in race number 2, and rounding out the season at race number 38 now. Van Gisbergen taking the victory. Obviously, Jamie Whincup finishing 3rd. He grabs the 2013 V8 Supercar Series Championship, the 5th of his career. Coming up in 2nd, Jason Bright. Obviously, Whincup we've already spoke of. And Craig Lowndes, race 1, we mentioned. He finished 15th. Race 2, finishes 5th. But I think the very telling story from the Sydney 500 weekend, Tom, is the fact that both race winners started from the pole position. Once again, gives a lot of credence to qualifying.
Yeah, it certainly does. I definitely think that if you really think about the way it should be structured. Qualifying should matter. It's part of the race weekend. It's part of the race day. And I love the way the V8 supercars do their deal, and it always produces exciting racing. I think it's probably one of the most underrated series in the entire world, especially here in America, where it's kind of a niche series that isn't really mainstream yet. And I think it ought to be, because I think it's a really, really entertaining form of racing.
It's extremely entertaining, and certainly if we can get Sir Pike back on here next Tuesday, he'll certainly have something to say about it, I know. But again, congratulations to Jamie Whincup, the Melbourne Victoria native, who has now won his 5th career V8 Supercar Series championship, scored his 74th career win in that first race on Saturday afternoon. That's moving on towards the top of the list. His teammate Craig Lowndes has the most all-time. So now the V8 Supercar team's looking forward to 2014. The team's championship this year did also go to Whincup and Lowndes as part of 888 Race Engineering, or as they're known in Australia, Red Bull Racing Australia. So the energy drink company certainly making a killing in motorsports. Kind of makes you wonder if they'd stuck around in NASCAR long enough, if something maybe could have come of that.
Well, yeah, you got a point. I'm not really too sure exactly how to respond to that, to be honest with you. You may very well be right.
Certainly makes it interesting, just like we've said. It seems like every story we've talked about, whether you've got whether you've got differing opinions on the stories that we've talked about tonight, they call up several questions, and it makes it interesting to think about. And it's these mental games that just make it fun for us to debate here on the air. And certainly when we get to it again next Tuesday, back at our normal time, 7 p.m. Eastern, we'll have more debate. Hopefully we'll have our full cast of characters back with us, and we'll be in the holiday spirit. It'll certainly be interesting. Geez, us in holiday cheer. Imagine that.
Yeah, we might even get Joel Sebastianelli to smile at some point next week.
Oh, that really would be a Christmas miracle, wouldn't it be?
No doubt.
We love Joel, though. We rib him because we care. And Tom, now you and I look forward to a special round of motorsports coverage tomorrow night. We're going to be on the air for the Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports Report at 7 p.m. Eastern. A special night, Wednesday night, for discussion from the worlds of late model and modified racing. We'll obviously recap the Snowball Derby a little bit more, see if we can talk with some drivers following that, and we'll also have a little bit more material to talk about live on the show as well, won't we?
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. We're going to kind of depart from the exclusivity of the late models and modifieds and go maybe in some other directions over the course of the next couple of weeks, which will be our last couple of weeks for the Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports Report for the year. We'll have 2 more shows, one tomorrow night, a special Wednesday night, 7 o'clock time slot, and then one next Thursday. That will be our final broadcast of the year for that show. So, yeah, it should be a lot of fun. I know we've already got Ronnie Bassett scheduled on tomorrow's programs, and we're going to have a couple of more drivers as well. Still working out the finality of the lineup here, but we know that Ronnie Bassett is confirmed, so looking forward to that. Should be a great show.
It should be, and for now, though, we bring the checkered flag on tonight's edition of Motorsports Madness. We'll be back tomorrow night at 7 Eastern for the Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports Report, and then again a week from tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern for the finale of Motorsports Madness in 2013. But until then, for Tom Baker, James Pike, Joel Sebastianelli, DJ Everett, Kyle Souza, Stephen Ovens, everybody that makes it happen here behind the microphones and behind the scenes, I'm Jacob Seelman, inviting all you race fans to keep it off the wall until we meet again. We'll see you at the track, folks. Have a safe racing weekend, and until next time, so long!